Success is not a miracle. It's a result of laws, spiritual laws, mental laws, practical laws. And wherever there is failure, it is never because of a lack of purpose, but a violation of principle. So the question is not, can you succeed? The question is, what's stopping you? What's the barrier between where you are and where you were born to be? What's blocking your dominion? What's stealing your vision? What's choking your purpose? Let me tell you something that might disturb your comfort, but it will deliver your destiny. Most people fail not because they are weak, but because they are misinformed. You're not stuck because you don't have talent. You're stuck because you don't know where to apply it. You're not losing because you lack power. You're losing because you lack direction. And nothing is more dangerous than energy without alignment. You can be the sharpest arrow, but if you're fired at the wrong target, you still miss. You can have passion and still perish. You can be ambitious and still be aimless. Because you can't master what you don't understand, you can't finish what you never began, and you cannot win a race that you were never assigned to run. That's the tragedy of ignorance. Not just the absence of information, but the absence of illumination. You can't succeed at being someone else. You cannot be fulfilled chasing shadows of somebody else's dream. Your fulfillment will never be found in imitation. God wired you uniquely for a reason. That's why copying others will only multiply your confusion. That's why some of you are exhausted. You've been pushing, grinding, striving, but in the wrong lane. You're climbing a ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. And it's not that you're failing at everything. You're succeeding in what you were never called to do. Let me ask you, what if your job is not your assignment? What if your talent is only the tool, but not the task? What if your training is correct, but your trajectory is off? Have you ever seen a lion acting like a gazelle? Never. Have you ever seen an eagle attending swimming lessons? Never. Because when you know who you are, you stop trying to fit in places that were never designed to hold you. I've seen doctors who are miserable. I've seen lawyers who are broken. I've met millionaires who are emotionally bankrupt. Because success is not about accumulation. It's about alignment. Alignment with your design. Alignment with your assignment. Alignment with your inner blueprint. Not what society told you, not what your parents expected, not what your culture demanded, but what heaven deposited. And some of you, you've buried the call so deep beneath bills, expectations, fears, and logic that you've forgotten the sound of your own inner voice. You've dressed your confusion in productivity. But busyness does not equal clarity, and activity does not mean accuracy. So I'm going to challenge you. Yes, you. Stop and interrogate your current direction. Ask yourself the hard questions. Not, how much am I making? But, is this making me? Not, what's next? But, why did I even begin? Because when you don't know the original intent of something, you're forced to guess at its value. And guesswork always leads to abuse. You were never called to wander, you were called to reign. You were never designed to compete, you were designed to dominate. Not people, but your space. Not over others, but over your domain. And that domain has already been carved out for you, but you will never access what you don't pursue. And you will never pursue what you don't first recognize. So it's time to stop looking outward and start digging inward. The keys you're looking for are not in the next seminar, not in the next trend, not in the next motivational quote. They are inside of you, locked up, waiting, crying out. But revelation always precedes revolution. Ignorance has robbed you long enough. Confusion has delayed you long enough. Clarity is not a luxury, it is your birthright. And until you reclaim it, you'll keep running fast, but arriving nowhere. Wake up, look within, refuse to die misinformed, because there's something greater than making a living, and that is making a difference. And the world doesn't need another copy. It needs you. Let me tell you the truth, most people are too afraid to say. Fear is a liar dressed like wisdom. Fear disguises itself as caution. It shows up sounding reasonable. It says, what if it doesn't work? What if I lose everything? What if I look foolish? And slowly, without shouting, without warning, it builds invisible walls around your destiny. Some of you are not tired. You are trapped inside a mental prison with doors that fear convinced you were locked. But I came to tell you, they're not locked. You're just afraid to try the handle. Fear does not come to attack your strength. It comes to blind your vision. Because a person without sight will bump into blessings and not recognize them. They'll stand in front of opportunity and call it danger. They'll touch greatness and pull their hand back. You weren't born with fear, you were taught to be afraid. Life trained you. Maybe someone laughed at your dream. Maybe you failed once and labeled yourself a failure. Maybe someone said, don't reach too high, and you believed them. But who gave them authority to define your capacity? Who gave them permission to dictate your future? Who told you that a scar means you stop? Have you ever watched a child learn to walk? They fall again, then again. But never once do they say, walking isn't for me. Never once do they say, maybe I should just crawl for the rest of my life. But look at you now, you've fallen a few times, and fear has convinced you that the ground is safer than the climb. But let me remind you, every champion once looked foolish. Every innovator was once misunderstood. Every world changer was once mocked, laughed at, labeled crazy. If you're waiting for permission to be great, you'll die waiting. Because fear will always ask for more evidence than you can provide. It doesn't respond to facts. It feeds on imagination. Fear thrives in delay. That voice that tells you, you're not ready yet, is not your friend. That hesitation, it's not protection, it's paralysis. And the longer you entertain fear, the more familiar it becomes. You'll start calling it being realistic. But faith is not realistic. Vision is not logical. Destiny is not safe. There are things heaven has assigned to your name that fear is holding hostage. Dreams half-built, books unwritten, businesses undeveloped. Not because of lack, but because of fear. You've been rehearsing worst-case scenarios so long, you've forgotten what hope feels like. But you were not created to live behind glass, watching others thrive. You were born to build, to rise, to risk. I've met too many people who are not living, they're just breathing. They're not afraid of dying, they're afraid of trying. And hear me clearly. You will never be free until you confront what you fear. You cannot conquer what you won't face. You cannot heal what you won't name. And you cannot walk on water if you won't step out of the boat. Do you really want to know what failure is? Failure is not falling down. Failure is staying down. Failure is dying with your gift still locked inside you. Failure is standing before God one day and hearing, I gave you the seed, but you never planted it. So here's the challenge. Do it afraid. Speak when your voice shakes. Move even when your knees tremble. Build even when the blueprint is incomplete, because fear will not leave voluntarily. It must be evicted by action. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that fear will not be your master. You've followed fear long enough. It's time to lead. It's time to rise. It's time to move forward, even if your voice breaks, even if your past screams, even if your mind protests, because what's waiting on the other side of fear is everything you were born for. Some of you are not being held back by demons. You're being delayed by your dinner guests. Let me say it again for those who missed it. The people you keep calling support are actually the ones draining your strength. You're not failing because you're incapable. You're failing because you're entangled, bound by friendships that feel good but feed nothing, surrounded by people who clap for your survival but would panic at your success. You've been loyal to dysfunction for too long, and loyalty to the wrong circle is a betrayal to your future. There comes a moment in every destiny when you must decide, do I want to be liked or do I want to be free? Because you cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. You cannot grow in soil that's poisoned with jealousy. You cannot become who you were born to be while dragging dead weight from who you used to be. You keep wondering why you feel drained after certain conversations, why you leave some rooms feeling smaller than when you entered. Why every time you share your idea, your vision, your next move, someone talks you back into fear. That's not random. That's not harmless. That's warfare disguised as friendship. Some of you are running with people who are not running. They are watching, sitting, spectating, waiting for you to trip so they can say, I told you to slow down. They're not cheering you on. They're pulling you back, one silent doubt at a time. And here's the tragedy. You've adjusted your vision to make them comfortable. You've shrunk your ambition to fit their acceptance. You've watered down your fire so they wouldn't feel cold. But let me ask you, how much of your future are you willing to sacrifice to keep company with people who have no intention of going anywhere? You can't fly with anchors tied to your ankles. You can't build legacy while entertaining mediocrity. You can't keep company with people who fear the very thing you were born to confront. Even Jesus had to clear the room. Before he raised that girl from the dead, he put the mourners outside. Why? Because the miraculous cannot operate in an atmosphere of mockery. There's certain places God cannot elevate you until you separate from who's suffocating you. I've seen visions aborted. Not by lack of resources, not by demonic attack, but by keeping the wrong people too close for too long. You don't owe anyone permanent access to a temporary season in your life. Some people were meant to be part of your history, not your destiny. Honor them, bless them, but let them go. And don't confuse familiarity with assignment. Just because they were there in your past does not mean they belong in your future. Lot went with Abraham, but Lot was not called. Jonah was on the boat, but not part of the mission. And as long as Jonah stayed, the storm stayed. You want peace? Throw Jonah overboard. You want growth? Walk away from those who belittle it. You want clarity? Start by cutting the noise that comes disguised as advice. This is your wake-up call. Clean the table, redraw the circle, redefine who gets a seat at your decision-making table. Because the next version of you, the higher, bolder, freer version, cannot emerge while you keep protecting people who are secretly praying you never outgrow them. So choose wisely, because your future is allergic to some people you've called friends. Let them go before they cost you everything. Let's be honest. Some people aren't waiting on God. They're using Him as an excuse to wait. You're not stuck because the door hasn't opened. You're stuck because you haven't knocked. You've been calling it patience, but it's passivity. You've been calling it timing, but it's fear wrapped in laziness. You say you're praying, but you're stalling. You say you're seeking peace, but you're hiding from pressure. And you dress it up in spiritual language so it looks holy, but heaven knows the truth. I've watched too many people bury their calling under the weight of comfort, because comfort is the enemy of movement, and movement is the oxygen of destiny. If you're not moving, you're dying, slowly, quietly, with good intentions. Let me tell you what laziness really looks like in this generation. It's scrolling while the vision fades. It's binge watching while your ideas collect dust. It's waiting on confirmation for something God already convicted you about. You don't need another sign. You need to get up. Laziness doesn't always look like doing nothing. Sometimes it looks like doing everything, except the one thing that matters. The one hard thing that would actually change your life. You're busy, but not productive. Active, but not advancing. You're writing to-do lists instead of taking territory. You're exhausted, but not because you're working. You're tired because your spirit knows you live in beneath your capacity. And nothing drains a soul faster than unfulfilled assignment. Let me ask you, how many more podcasts will you listen to before you take action? How many sermons will you replay before you obey the first instruction God gave you? You don't need more inspiration, you need discipline, you need commitment. You need to trade your feelings for focus. Because favor flows where responsibility is embraced. Heaven does not reward laziness. Even the manna stopped when the Israelites reached the promised land. Why? Because miracles were never meant to replace work, they were meant to guide you into it. And hear me, no calling excuses you from effort. No dream is immune from demand. If the vision is from God, it will require your sweat, your tears, your consistency. You cannot pray your way out of what only discipline can build. God gives you the seed, but you must till the ground. The future you keep daydreaming about, it's already waiting, but it doesn't respond to hope. It responds to movement. So stop lying to yourself in the name of rest. You're not resting, you're retreating. You're not recharging, you're running. It's time to wake up. Heaven doesn't bless what you imagine. It blesses what you act on. You cannot become what you were born to be while clinging to who you've always been. Change is not optional. It's the price of becoming. And yet, many will sacrifice transformation just to stay familiar. They will trade growth for comfort and progress for predictability. Let me be clear, God will not adjust your future to accommodate your unwillingness to grow. It's either you change or you stay change. Not by devils, not by curses, but by your own refusal to confront yourself. Some of you are praying for elevation, but you're still carrying the mindsets of survival. You want more, but you're thinking like less. You're asking for promotion, but holding on to attitudes, habits, and patterns that disqualify you for the next level. That's not delay, that's disobedience. We say we want to grow, but when God sends change, we resist it. He sends disruption, and we call it an attack. He closes a door, and we call it loss. He disconnects someone from our life, and we call it betrayal. But what if the very thing you're mourning is the thing He removed to make room for who you're becoming? Change is not punishment, it's preparation. But if you love the old version of yourself more than the future God is calling you into, you'll never cross over. You'll walk in circles, like Israel in the wilderness, freed from Egypt, but still thinking like slaves. Outwardly free, but inwardly unchanged. Let me tell you why change feels so hard. Because transformation is not cosmetic, it's surgical. It cuts, it confronts, it strips away what you thought you needed. And some of you are so deeply attached to the broken version of yourself that healing feels like betrayal. But it's not betrayal, it's alignment. Do not pray for a new season if you're not willing to be a new person. A new level requires a new mindset. A new door requires a new discipline. You cannot pour kingdom identity into an old ego. You cannot walk in divine authority while still carrying your childhood insecurity. Change will cost you. It will cost pride, it will cost excuses, it will cost blaming others, it will cost the need to be liked, the need to be understood, and the need to always be comfortable. But hear me, The pain of staying the same will always be greater than the pain of becoming. If you want to see something different, you must be something different. Don't just shout for breakthrough. Become the person that breakthrough requires. Because God will never give you a future you're not willing to grow into. You will never conquer what you're still blaming. It's one of the most dangerous habits of our generation. We point at everything but ourselves. We blame the government. We blame the economy. We blame our parents. We blame the church. We blame our upbringing. We even blame God. But let me tell you something that might shake your pride. You cannot change what you refuse to own. Responsibility is not a burden, it is a bridge to freedom, a bridge to maturity, a bridge to transformation. But as long as you keep playing the victim in a story God called you to lead, you will remain stuck in cycles of frustration, disappointment, and delay. Some people aren't trapped by their circumstances, they're trapped by their excuses. And excuses are comfortable. They keep you safe from accountability. They shield you from shame, but they also shield you from growth, from becoming, from breaking through. Every time you say, "It's not my fault," you're also saying, "It's not my responsibility to fix it." And that mindset will leave you powerless. Because the moment you release responsibility, you also surrender authority. You give your future over to whatever or whoever you've decided is in control. But you were never created to be controlled by excuses. You were created to govern, to lead, to rule. And that means standing face to face with your mess and declaring, "This ends with me." Not because it's fair, not because it's easy, but because freedom begins when ownership begins. Let me be real with you. Life may have handed you pain you didn't choose, but healing is your responsibility. Maybe you were raised in dysfunction, but wholeness is your decision now. Maybe they walked out, but peace is still your choice. You may not have built the storm, but it's your job to steer the ship. I've seen too many gifted people wait for someone to come rescue them from the life they're responsible to rebuild. No one is coming to save you. That's what the cross was for. You've already been rescued. Now it's time to rise, to lead, to choose, to respond. Responsibility is not weakness. It is divine alignment. Heaven partners with those who stop blaming and start building. Heaven responds to those who say, "Even if I didn't cause it, I will confront it. Even if I didn't start it, I will finish it." Stop saying, "This is just how I am." That's not identity. That's avoidance. Don't hide behind personality when God is calling for transformation. Don't spiritualize your stagnation. Don't baptize your blame. You've been given power, but power without responsibility becomes waste. You can either sit in the ashes of what went wrong, or you can pick up the stones and build what's next. The future is waiting, but it only responds to the ones bold enough to say, "It's on me now." Let me leave you with this. There comes a moment in every life where excuses must die and ownership must rise. There comes a point where you stop rehearsing the pain, the delay, the fear, and you decide to rise. You decide to cut the rope. Burn the backup plan. Walk out of the graveyard of who you used to be and step boldly, blindly, obediently into who you were always meant to become. No more waiting for signs. No more shrinking for approval. No more babysitting insecurity like it's a virtue. You are not a victim. You are not forgotten. You are not unqualified. You are not finished. You are called. You are chosen. You are responsible. And now you are out of excuses. So shift your posture. Get up, rebuild, reinvent, repent, rewrite the story if you must. Just don't stay still. Because nothing great ever comes to those who remain in comfort Greatness answers movement. Destiny bows to discipline. And the future responds only to those who dare to confront what's stopping them. Whatever has been holding you back ends now. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when it feels better. Now. This is your moment. Not just to dream, not just to believe, but to act. Good luck on the journey. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening. May you never be the same again.